meditation is going to be led by Janet Reghart.
Thanks, Kat. Now that she's left you all with that image, I'll ask you to get comfortable, but rest. And close your eyes if you'd like. Just take a moment to recognize you are here, in this place, this beautiful time. Notice your breath. The first inhale comes when we're born. Notice your inhalation. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Notice the twitches and the pause that comes. Notice the exhalation. They follow without thought. A beginning, a middle, and an end. Another inhalation will follow. We trust it. We don't think about it. It happens. Until that last exhalation, when nothing will follow. No inhalation. Rest in that stillness, pause between. Bring your attention to the sound and the silence between the sounds, like pauses between your breaths. Meditation is when we turn our attention to the quiet within, which isn't always so quiet. Meditation isn't about stopping thoughts. It's about noticing what they are. It's about getting to the truth. It's about realizing what is. May everyone, including myself, be happy. May everyone, including myself, be free from suffering. May no one, including myself, be separated from their happiness. May everyone, including myself, abide in equanimity, free from hatred and attachment.
Today's presentation is by Alejandro Grattan, Fateful Chance Encounters. This award-winning novelist and screenwriter-director talked to us a year ago about his career in the film industry. Today, his personal story resumes in 1987 when he retired to Ajijic. He's going to drop names, describe the lakeside life then, the founding of the Ajijic Writers Group, and his roles in shaping the Ojo de Lago we know today. He says his favorite theme in fiction is how, if we are lucky, we may not get what we so desperately crave, but rather what we truly need. Alex wrote and directed the first movie about Mexican Americans. Only Once in a Lifetime, which was recently purchased with another film of his, No Return Address, by Turner Classic Movies. He has been editor-in-chief of the Ojo de Lago for the past 21 years and established the Ajijic Writers Group in 1988. Please welcome Alex Grattan.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today. I got a couple of things to say that I think you might find some interest in. I just hope the hell I can remember them. And along that same line, I'll start by telling you a story, true story. A couple of months ago, I was here at the LCS having coffee with a pal, and I mentioned to him that I was a little worried about my memory. And he said, "You're not worried about Alzheimer's, are you?" And I said, "Yeah, isn't everybody down here?" And he said, "Well, you know, there's a difference between normal memory loss and Alzheimer's." And I said, "What is it?" He said, "It's like this." It actually turned out to be an old joke that I never heard before, and hopefully you haven't either. He said, let's say you go shopping for 10 items in the store, and you come out and you find that you forgot to pick up 2 of them. That's normal memory loss. Let's say you go into a store for 10 items, and you come out and you've got all 10 items of food that you went in to buy, but you can't remember what you're supposed to do with food. That's a bit more serious. Anyway, the title of my piece is Fateful Encounters, Chance Encounters, and I've been lucky enough to have had them in many countries all my life. And some of those chance encounters have changed my life. Happened in many countries, including Mexico, but most especially Mexico. I first came to Mexico in 1963. And the old Posada was not only a place, a popular place, it was the place. And so I was meeting some former college classmates of mine there. And I happened to get into a conversation with an elderly couple and learned some stuff that I never even dreamed of, and I don't think it's in history books. These people had been Jewish refugees who came to Ajijic in the early 1940s to avoid what was happening in Europe. And the reason they were here is because they'd heard about the weather, and while they were waiting for visas to get into the United States, it was much cheaper to live here. Anyway, they started telling me about what Lakeside was like in 1941, as I recall now. There were only 2 telephones in town. One was in the post office, and the other one no one could find. There was only 1 doctor here. And one sure sign of somebody who had just come to Lakeside was they had elastic bandages on either their elbows or their knees because they were not accustomed to the cobblestones. There was quite a Jewish community down here at that point in time, and they would have black tie formal dinners about every 3 weeks, and the band at the old Posada would play various national anthems, European national anthems. And there was also a lot of intrigue because at that point in time, nobody knew on what side Mexico was going to fight. Everyone knew there was going to be a war. Well, that was, and I'm proud of this, being half Mexican, that question was resoundingly settled when days after Pearl Harbor, the Mexicans trained a squadron called 201. Taught them to be very good pilots. Shortly thereafter, they went to Phoenix, Arizona. They started trading on Thunderbolts, P-47s, and within weeks after Pearl Harbor, they were in the South Pacific. And over the course of the war, they just covered themselves with glory. That was Squadron 201. They're famous now. But talking about a fateful chance encounter, I learned an awful lot from these people. And they were living here. They planned to stay here. But anyway, that was 1940, early 1941. Flash forward 1980. I make a movie called No Return Address, which is, Pat was kind enough to mention, the first movie ever about the Mexican-American experience. It's about a Mexican immigrant painter living in East LA who, very sad, lonely kind of a guy, a recluse. His only companion is an old dog that he's had since he was a puppy. And very quietly and without a great deal of fanfare, he decides to check out. But then he remembers he can't do it until he finds a home for his dog. And so over the next couple of days, he's trying to find a home for the dog, and he runs into more things in, in that week than he had in the previous 15 years. All right, now we flash forward to 2005. Not having anything better to do, I decided to write a novel based on that screenplay. But instead of it taking place 1 week in 1995, I decided to make my middle-aged painter go back and make him a young boy in Ajijic in 1940. And I wrote the book, and it was published, and it's right here in the library. It's called Only Once in a Lifetime. So that chance encounter there at Posada way back then really worked for me. About that same point in time, I met a lady named B.J. Burns. How many people here remember her? Anybody? Well, look at this, yeah. B.J., like a lot of people down here, has been a former super achiever. She's been a regular on the old Donna Reed TV show, and she's been living here for about 10 years. Anyway, we got to be friends. She was having a hard time explaining something in Spanish to somebody, and I stepped in and tried to help her out a little bit. And we became fast friends. And the little theater had just opened up. The year was 1988. A wonderful guy named Rocky Carnes directed the first show, a Woody Allen thing called Please Don't Eat the Drink the Water. And they asked me to do the second show. Today they got a marvelous talent pool, just hundreds and hundreds of people. Back then, not so much. I selected Arsenie's Old Lace, which I thought was a beautifully written play. And it had 16 speaking parts, and only 9 people showed up at the auditions. And so I had to combine parts, throw some parts out the window, whatever it might be. But we had very good luck with it in that it ran for a long time. But the guy that, how many people know the play, Arsenie Old Lace? Okay, good. For those who don't, it's about a couple of daffy old sisters who live in upstate New York. And they have a boarding house for indigents. And they feel so sorry for these people that over the course of just a couple of weeks after they moved in, they put poison in elderberry wine, give it to them. So they die. They think they're doing them a favor. And then they've got a nephew who thinks he's Teddy Roosevelt. And he disposes of the bodies. He takes them down to the cellar where he thinks he's digging the Panama Canal. Anyway, the guy that we had to play Teddy had a drinking problem. And during the rehearsals, when he should be on stage and wasn't, I would have the sisters call out, "Teddy, get down here." And if he was, I should say, on stage and wasn't, get down here. If he was on stage, they say, "Teddy, go to your room." And anyway, on opening night, he was swiped out of his door. And being the new theater and the whole thing, it was a big crowd. Anyway, there's a scene in the play where about halfway through, they've done in yet another boarder, and they put him in the window seat, inside the window seat, right? And so with the stage darkened, he walks across the stage, Teddy does, takes his styrofoam body, right? Makes it across the stage to where we had some ladders leading down to the orchestra pit, and of course that was subbing in for the cellar. Anyway, it seemed to me, I know it couldn't have, but it seemed to me like 15 minutes for him to get from one end of the stage to the other, and then he starts down the stairs. And he collapses on the second step and falls, and it sounded like a rhino coming to the ground. And anyway, then there's silence, and more silence. And I thought, terrific, I've come to this lovely little town just to kill somebody. And I was halfway out of my seat, I should have said earlier, that he goes through the play blowing his trumpet like Teddy Roosevelt did at the charge of the San Juan Hill. Anyway, in this eerie silence, I'm halfway out of my seat, going to ask them to call for an ambulance, and we hear this, toot-toot. He's blowing his trumpet down at the bottom of the aisle. Anyway, after the play was over, people came up to me and said, "You know, we saw this play many years ago in Manhattan, and this is the most brilliant directorial job I've ever seen." And how many people here think I told them otherwise? So, anyway, a short while, another fateful encounter. I used to hang out, nothing better to do at the Ajijic Square. I knew almost nobody, although I met a lot of wonderful people there at the theater. And there was a guy that always came, and he also had a drinking problem. By 10:30 in the morning, he was whacked. He had a little goatskin thing filled with wine. And one thing that I learned in the short while I've been in IEE was nobody ever talks about specific dates. They're scared to death somebody is going to find out how old somebody is. And God forbid you ever ask, hey, how old are you? So I kept that in mind. So the guy turned to me one day there on the bench at the square and said, well, it's from Ireland. He was a remittance man, which means that his family paid him money to stay away. And I could understand that. Anyway, he says, so somebody was telling me then that you were involved in the movie business. How long ago was it that you made your last picture? And remembering to be amorphous, I said, again, it's been a while. He said, could you be a bit more specific? And so I said, no, Ian, sometimes not, such and such. And he looked at me real hard and said, could you at least tell me this? This is a talking picture or one of those silent movies? It was a case where being amorphous didn't work for me at all. But anyway, a woman who used to sit between us, he had a drinking problem, so I liked for somebody to always be between us. A woman told me, listen, with your background, why don't you set up a writer's group down here? I said, no, I don't think there's many writers down here. She said, listen, I've been here for longer than you, and I'm telling you there's some writers down here. I said, okay. So she said, look, if you set it up, I will help you in any way I can. So we made some flyers and put them on telephone poles and stuff like that. And had our first meeting at the old Posada, and there were about 35 people there. And I thought it went pretty well, knowing the writers. Anyway, she never came back. And I saw her about 2 years later on the street, and I said, Mary Jo, you're the one who put this whole thing in motion, and you never came back. Why? And rather than answer me directly, she said, Grattan, do you remember the old Frankenstein movies? I said, yeah, sure, everybody does that. She said, what I saw, what we had brought together, she said, I wanted to scream a more ill-tempered, cantankerous bunch of drunks I've never met all my life. Anyway, she never again crossed our portals. But from time to time, people ask me, well, our format is this. People read and then other people critique and tell the person how stupid they are. And somebody asked me not too long ago, to what basic groups do you appeal, the writers group? I said, we've got two target groups that we like to appeal to. Sadists or masochists. But we've still been there. We've now been around for, 28 years. We meet the first and third Fridays of every month, and you're all cordially invited. At the new Posada, 10 o'clock in the morning, and then we have lunch there in the patio. Okay, another chance encounter. 1994, the peso went upside down, and everybody lost about 50% of what they had. Dave, you remember that. Because they used to loan me money, I remember. Anyway, I could no longer live in Ajijic. I was just getting by, and I sold my car, and I moved to Santa Cruz on the road to Vista del Lago, way out there, and I would take the bus. And one day, a real swell lady picked me up, and she was coming into town, and we chatted, and I invited her to the writers group, and she started coming to it. Her name was Rosa Maria Casas, and she was the editor at that time of the Ojo de Lago. She was a lady who had won 2 major literary awards here in Mexico, one of them which paid her $25,000. And she had also been with the Mexican Diplomatic Corps, and she had been posted to their embassies in Athens, Paris, and London. So I don't have to tell you how sophisticated this lady was. Anyway, we got to be good friends, and one day she came in the room in the afternoon and said, what are you doing? And I said, geez, not much, just watching my life pass by. And she said, well, get in the car, come with me. Where are we going? I was pretty excited about getting the car and come with me. I failed to mention that on top of all her other attributes, she looked like Dolores Del Rio. How many people remember Doris Del Rio? Yeah. I think every man who ever met her fell secretly in love with her, and I was no exception. So when she told me to get in the car, I jumped in. Anyway, she took me to see Richard Tinkin. She had already, the publisher of Law, she had already given her notice, and so he was looking for someone to replace her. So she came in. I'd never met him before. We sat down in his office, and she said, so I've only got another 2 weeks left. Who do you got? And he pulled out a little piece of paper with a list of 5 names, and she said, let me take a look at it. He handed it to her. She glanced at the names, and then she reached into her purse, pulled out a cigarette lighter, and set fire to the list. That's the kind of person she was. And she said, hey, she cursed like a sailor, but I won't even use her. She said, to hell with this goddamn list. This is the guy. He said, well, wait a minute. I've never even met this man. And she turned to Richard Tinkin and said, listen, let me get something straight. Are you telling me you know more about journalism than I do? Is that what you're saying? She said, no, of course not. She just browbeat the living hell out of me, and that's how I came to get the job. And it's been a wonderful gig for the longest time. This is before email, and the first letter I got there at the Ojo del Lago was from some guy who said, dear editor, I don't know if you know this or not, but Mexico City is the only place in the world that you can buy a Land Charger truck. And I'm wondering, what do I care? And he said, anyway, I'm now living here in Lakeside, and I've got the truck, and I even bought a wonderful heavy-duty aluminum bumper. And some night, if I'm very lucky, I'll catch you out on the highway and christen my bumper with your head. Yeah, the letters read like that quite a bit. But, no, it was an awfully good time. I'm often asked, how do you get something published in the Ojo del Lago? It is an arduous process. You have to send us something. We've had some awfully, funny enough, when I first came down from California, the one thing I feared, the one thing I thought I was going to miss the most were the characters in Hollywood. I needn't have worried. This place. One of the characters, and one of the very first members of the writers group, was a guy named Ray Rigby. Rigby was quite simply one of England's very best screenwriters. He had written pictures for Sean Connery, for Sophia Loren, etc. And but now he was living here in Ajijic in a very humble dwelling. He had married an elderly Mexican woman. To this day, I don't know why, other than the roof over his head. And he just had no money. He was getting by on a government pension of $77. Can't remember how many pounds. And I asked him, I said, Ray, listen, I checked you out. You were for real. You were big time. You must have made millions and millions of dollars in your time. And he had. I said, what are you doing down here getting by on 77 pounds a month? And he said, well, when I had a lot of money, I was really kind of stupid about it. He said, on 2 separate occasions, I and Richard and Peter rented a yacht, and we got 12 women to go on the yacht with us around the world, twice. And he said, that goes into money. And I said, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Peter and Richard? Oh, I'm sorry, I should have said Richard Burton and Peter O'Toole. And he had the pictures to prove it, right? And yeah, like you said, that runs into a bit of money. But anyway, he was married to this Mexican woman who was a lovely, lovely person, but she was troubled. They would go into a restaurant. He would excuse himself to make a phone call to go to the restroom, and he'd come back and find that she had set fire to the tablecloth. But one time I went over to his house, and he finally got desperate enough to take drastic measures. And he had composed a letter to Margaret Thatcher, who at that time was the Prime Minister of England. But the letter was coming purportedly from a third party. And it started, "Dear Mrs. Thatcher, this is to advise you that a man who's brought great honor and acclaim to the British film industry is today living the life of a veritable beggar in Mexico. If you could see his face, Mrs. Thatcher, when he goes into a wealthy restaurant and watches wealthy Texans enjoying a T-bone steak." And on and on and on like that. And in conclusion, could you either do one of two things: drastically increase his pension, or have the Queen grant him an OBE, an Order of the British Empire, which came with his life stipend. And so he asked me, "What do you think of the letter?" And I said, "Really, this letter sucks. The only thing missing is an infant abandoned in a snowdrift somewhere." So he said, "Well, I'm glad you feel that way, because I want you to sign the letter." And so I did, and we sent it off to England, right? About a month and a half, maybe a little longer than that, I got a letter. The old post office used to be right up here on the council. I got a letter, and I saw up in the upper left-hand side, 10 Downing Street, right? The letter was not from Thatcher, but it was not a phone letter either, from the secretary. "Dear Mr. Grattan, please be advised that the PM has now been told about the plight that Mr. Rigby is undergoing there in Mexico, and she has pledged to look into his pension situation herself, personally." So I hand carried the letter over to Ray, and we both, he opened up a bottle of wine, and we had a good time, thinking, okay, his money troubles are over. About a month and a half or two, he gets a letter from the Social Security equivalent, the American Social Security equivalent of that over in England, and this came to him. "Dear Mr. Rigby, at the instigation of the PM herself, we have looked into your account, and unfortunately find that we've been overpaying for the and we'll have to deduct £10 a month. This is off £77. £10 a month until the shortfall. You have to live to age 250 to make up the shortfall until it's made up." And Ray passed away only about 2 months later, and I've often wondered if the two of us were related. But again, on Ray Rigby, Rocky Carnes, who had done the second play, was a well-known character actor. He had been in Kane Mutiny with Humphrey Bogart. He had played Jimmy Stewart's brother in It's a Wonderful Life. I think a lot of people here have seen that movie. Anyway, he was a very well-known, but he was kind of getting into his dotage, and Ray as well. And they used to hang out together because they both had show business income. And one day I saw Rocky's wife, and I said, "Listen, Ray's been ill lately. He's had the flu, but he's feeling better now, and he wants to go drinking with Rocky." And Rocky's wife just threw her hands off the gas and said, "Oh God, please don't tell my husband that. Don't tell him that." I said, "Why? I thought you guys were good friends." And she said, No, you don't understand. I like him. I like Ray fine. But every time he and his and my husband go out drinking, I mean, they get whacked. They come home at daybreak. They can't even open the latch to my gate outside, and they stand there yammering out there. And nobody can understand what they're talking about. And the Mexicans are going to work, and it's just deeply embarrassing to have my husband out there, like he's still drunk or something, I said, "What do you mean yammering?" And she said, "Well, over the course, and this hasn't happened just once, she said, over the course of the evening, both of them have apparently lost their false teeth." And she said, "I can't afford to buy my husband a pair of false teeth every time he wants to go out drinking with Ray Rigby." So, yeah, I don't know. It's a wonderful time here in Ajijic, but I look back and we don't seem to have those kind of characters anymore. With maybe, but anyway, to leave on a philosophical note, when I first came down here, I was angry. I was angry at turn of events that had taken place in Hollywood that I hadn't been able to control. And I just felt like I'd not been able to, I had a movie that premiered at the Kennedy Center and, on and on, but I hadn't been able to turn the corner, and people who had been lieutenants on my movies were now making movies with Robert Redford and people like that. So I had a certain amount of anger, but it wouldn't come out until I was drinking. And one night I was in Tom's bar. Everybody knows about drinking at Tom's bar. And some guy was bad-mouthing Douglas MacArthur, and I just read 2 books about MacArthur. And I knew quite a bit about him because of that. And so I was fairly drunk, and I walked up to this guy. He was seated with somebody else. And I said, listen, you've got one of 2 options here. Either stop bad-mouthing General MacArthur, and I'm a liberal. Stop bad-mouthing him, or you and I are going to step outside, and I'm going to rearrange your facial features. And so he got up, and then he kept getting up, and then he kept getting up. Anyway, cooler heads prevailed, and I was prevailing from the moment he started to get out of his chair. Well, we were out in the street, and we were in kind of a combative mode. And my friend put his arm around me and drew me to one side, and he said, "Grattan, are you out of your goddamn mind? First of all, this guy is 10 years older than you are, so if you beat him up, who cares? And if he beats you up, it's even worse, right?" And all of a sudden, the old proverbial light bulb came over my head, and I turned to him and said, "Listen, man, this is all my fault. I'm terribly sorry. Let's go back inside and let me buy you a drink." But anyway, just by way of giving you an idea, but as the years went by and the awful prospered, and the writers group did a facsimile of Prospering, and I started getting some novels published and blah blah blah, and I had a lot of wonderful relationships. I suddenly just made peace with myself and realized I was in the best place I could possibly be. My favorite movie of all time, and anybody who knows me well knows it, is The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. It was made in 1948, Humphrey Bogart, set here in Mexico. 3 prospectors go into the godforsaken Sierra Madre Mountains. They're up there for 10 months, just backbreaking labor. And the 2 remaining guys, they lose the gold, but they found something even better, and that goes along. Good. That goes along with my theme of sometimes getting not what you so desperately crave, but for what you truly needed all along and never knew you needed. And I needed a place like this, and I think there's a lot of people that I'm looking at right now that kind of needed a place like this. So anyway, kind of a happy camper. And that's the story. Please don't ask any questions. I'll have to invoke the 5th Amendment to
So, what a wealth
Yeah,
of life.
yes, sir.
We'll take questions. So again, you raise your hand. The mic's brought to you. Stand up, hold the mic close, and ask the question particularly, more than a commentary.
Alejandro, thank you. When I first came to Ajijic about 8 years ago, there used to be a man walking the streets, and
That was me.
he
I get lost easily.
he dressed kind of, first I was Santa Claus, with a big head and flowers, and he used to have a donkey.
Pedro Loco.
Pedro, and he talked.
He was my financial advisor.
And I wonder whether you know his story. He told me he was from Montreal, but I'm not sure if that was true.
He had quite a story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And his donkey, and he painted the hoofs of the donkey with nail polish.
That's what I mean. This place doesn't lack for characters.
You know, Alex, it might be fun for the people here to know how many consecutive writers groups we've had. Mark Stans, what's the number of the running?
676.
676 consecutive writers groups on Friday morning.
Yeah.
Great. Wow.
Well, again, like I say, that's only because there's an awful lot of sadists and/or masochists.
Who else would like to ask a question?
Yep.
Far back?
Alejandro, thank you for that great talk. There are 2 writers who lived lakeside and painted very vivid pictures of the 1940s. And I'm wondering if, since they were contemporaries, if you know if the path of Neil James and Peter Lidley ever crossed, and if they had any interactions with each other while they were both writing their great books about lakeside in the 1940s.
They wrote under the name Dame Chandos. and that was an amalgamation of both their names. Yeah, it was two guys writing under, one byline. Funny enough, not too long ago, the Ojo de Lago did a long piece on Neil James. And in doing our research person came up with an article that had been written in Red Book magazine. Remember Red Book? Anybody old enough? A long time ago, and they thought, when I say anybody old enough, they're all in our hands, of course. And in Red Book, they said that over the years, Neil James had many prominent visitors, among them being, get this, Winston Churchill and Ernest Hemingway. The lady who gave us this place here was very famous. Yeah, she was nationally famous, certainly.
Could you tell us the story of why the large tree remains in the patio of the Nuevo Posada and your role in it?
This is quite possibly the best thing I've ever done, and I would like this on my tombstone. Years ago, when the Posada was being built by Morley Eager, the new Posada, I lived a couple of blocks away, and I used to walk my dog right by the construction site. And one day I walked by there, and Morley Eager, I was out there with a bunch of construction guys, and they had some bandsaw, and they were cutting down that tree in the patio. And I said, "Oh, don't do this, don't do this." Now, I knew Morley fairly well, and he said, "Yeah, it's got the roots, so the roots are real deep, and they'll bring the concrete up and blah." And I said, "You can replace the concrete. This tree's been around for 200 years, And I just really got excited, more excited. Give you an idea of how little I had to do back in those days. I got real excited about a tree. And I went on, and the following day I was walking again, I walked by, and this time the workmen were gone, and somebody was up pruning the tree. And so anyway, folks, people thought for me. I told Eager, the least you could do was put a plaque of mine, with my name on there. It would be the most outstanding credit of anything I've ever done in my entire life. Talking about that, at one point we had a little exercise at the writers group where we asked people to write their epitaph. And some of the stuff that came out was really quite funny. Mine was, all my mature life, which is maybe the last year, I've been working with words, and yet I've never quite been able to figure out the mystery between lie and lay. At a very superficial level, it's fairly easy, but then it gets deeper, and then I get confused. So anyway, I wanted my tombstone to read, Alejandro Grattan, here he lies, and then parentheses, lays? Still rewriting. All right. Thank you.
Is that it?
No.
Could you at least ask the speakers if you would condone to the new people who are here, the ladies come over in this corner for 5 minutes, and the others in the men and so on, and the other corners they can watch and give a little boost to meeting people, like lonely, like men who need a partner.
That's a beautiful request. We can't do that, but there's this time as we pick up our chairs and move around and start to leave where there's a lot of conversation possible.
I know there is a lot, but this is a deep wish, and it could be tried for 3 minutes or 5, because people spend 10 minutes here, don't they? Don't they spend 10 minutes here afterwards?
Well, we try to actually kind of boot everybody out in the most polite way. But I'm sorry, I can't honor that request.
I've got a Lonely Hearts business that for a small monthly fee, I can make introductions.
This is the man you want to see. Yes.
Chief, I was able to see a movie last night that I know you love and seen recently, Trumbo. You said earlier that you're a liberal. Can you tell us a little bit about your feelings, your personal feelings vis-a-vis Trumbo.
That would take 6 hours, and I don't think it's good.
You can't combo it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, oh wait, one more,
One more.
hang on.
Alex, you told us a little bit about the past. Can you tell us what you think is going to happen here in this community over the next 20 years? What would you like to see?
It depends on who's elected president of the United States. It could be the apocalypse. I like something somebody told me not too long ago. They said, all of a sudden I'm now all to the wall. And I said, are you out of your mind? Don't tell Mexicans or they'll put you over a Spitfire. And he said, no, I want the wall, but honoring the original boundaries. The wall would be built somewhere in Utah, right? Okay, thank you. Yeah. Oh.
Okay. So, this was a wonderful time of being with you all. We thank you so much. Again, you can go to our website, opencircle.org. You can purchase DVDs. We thank you so much for leaving your puppies at home. We know how much you love them, but it works best for all of us. Take your conversations outside if you don't mind, so that we can pick up and clean up and clear out. Stack your chairs, take your coffee cups and get rid of them. And if you brought your coffee cups, we are so happy to do that. We're trying to be as sustainable as possible. We'll see you next week.